Now, one of the main things that a person has to understand when it comes to Pesach is that you cannot prepare for Pesach a couple of days before Pesach. Pesach really requires a very long preparation, a spiritual preparation, a material preparation. There's a lot of things that need to happen. Of course, as the years go by, you get better at it. If you have kids, you learn how to adjust, what to do, how to do. Your kids learn more and so on. But there are certain things that a person needs to know that are important, but they're not priority. Meaning, a lot of people, the way that they think of Pesach is they think of the food. They think of the food. They think of what am I going to cook? Aside from the matzah, who's going to eat this? Who's going to sit where? And in reality, the meal of Pesach, although it's important, it's good for it to be delicious. It's good for it to be to have all different types of varieties and so on. But it's not the number one priority in Pesach. The priority in Pesach is not the food. Okay, the priority in Pesach is actually quite different. In fact, the Gemara in Masechet Pesachim, page 115b, says that if somebody swallowed matzah, he fulfilled the obligation, meaning he just swallowed it without chewing it. He still fulfilled the obligation. But if he swallowed the maror, the bitter herbs, he did not fulfill the obligation. He did not fulfill the obligation. Now, this actually was paskin halacha. The Rambam in Ilchot Chametz U'Matzah in chapter 2, second halacha, paskins this halacha, that if somebody swallowed the matzah without chewing, he still fulfilled the mitzvah. But if he did not chew the bitter herbs, he did not fulfill the mitzvah. Did not fulfill the mitzvah. And the Shulchan Aruch elaborates and also paskins it halacha in Orach Chaim, and he says, why is this the case? Because the whole point of the matzah and the maror is to signify specific things. Where the matzah is, of course, to remind us of the difficulties that we endured when we were in Egypt, is one of the things we have to remember. That's one of the main things that highlights it is actually the maror, the bitter herbs, and that's one of the most critical parts to discuss, to think about during Pesach, during the Seder, is actually the bitterness of our suffering. The bitterness of our suffering, we have to think about that. The fact that the Egyptians took children, little babies, and put them instead of the cinder blocks. If their parents, did not meet a quota of making a certain amount of stones, how many children they killed every single day just to heal the wicked Paro. Where the Chachamim say that Paro was told by his necromancers that in order for him to heal from tzarat that he had all over his body, he had to bathe in Jewish blood. So they would slaughter 150 Jewish babies in the morning, take their blood and make it into a bath for Paro, and then another 150 at night. Each day he would slaughter these amount of kids. Okay. Aside from that, when Paro made things even more difficult for Am Yisrael, as if it wasn't difficult enough, if they didn't meet the quota of having making a certain amount of stones, the Egyptians, Imach Shimam V'Zichram, would take the Jewish children and put it instead of the cinder blocks. There was an endless amount of suffering where they took the Jewish people and did everything they could to break their morale. Whereby they made the men do the jobs of women, and the women, they gave them jobs of men. This broke the morale of the people. And worst of all is that Paro wasn't really looking to really rebuild Egypt and make it as magnificent as he really told Am Yisrael initially, when initially promised them to pay them a lot of money, and because due to their patriotism, only to fool them into slavery. After they've abandoned their businesses and had nothing else to do, he turned everybody into slaves. But aside from that, one of the horrible things that Paro did to break the morale of Am Yisrael was to give them work that is never ending, because whatever they built would collapse. he would specifically have his people target a place where he knew there was either quicksand there or just an unstable foundation or whatever he could, where he knew that once they built this building, the whole thing would collapse. So even though they're slaves, there's still a certain amount of joy in achieving something. Even though it's due to slavery and agony and pain, at least when you see that you built something, there's a certain pleasure that you get from doing something. Today, people get a pleasure out of, sending a message on the internet and getting a certain amount of likes. Of course, Am Yisrael was not looking for likes. They're simply just to see that whatever they've been building, whatever they were sweating blood and tears for, or at least built something, even that pleasure Paro did not want to give them. So that bitterness is symbolized by and for over 116 years of agony and slavery out of the 210 years that Am Yisrael was in Egypt. 116 years we were slaves, and it got worse and worse day after day, making something that's dramatically bigger than what the most recent Holocaust that we saw by the Nazis, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram, seem insignificant. That's how much death and disaster we had in Egypt. And this agony is supposed to be symbolized by the maror. Now, the Matzah, on the other hand, is supposed to symbolize how fast the salvation comes. Where, when the salvation eventually came after a whole round of miracles and so on, that Hashem gave us all of the different plagues, all of the different miracles that happened, this eventual salvation was really culminated in such a quick second that Am Yisrael was not even given enough time to make their bread. So they were left with matzah. So here, this is something that is of significant value for Am Yisrael, and Rabbi Yosef Karo says that the reason why somebody that eats the matzah without chewing it fulfills the mitzvah, but somebody that does not chew the maror, the bitter herbs, and simply swallows it, does not fulfill the mitzvah, is because even if you swallowed the matzah without chewing it, you still feel a certain amount of satiation that can give you a connection to that salvation that we got. There's still something different about that matzah than the rest of the year of what you eat. On the other hand, if you don't chew the bitter herbs, you don't taste the bitterness, and therefore you're missing the key part of the mitzvah, which is to actually see yourself as if you are living through the difficulty right now. Many people can perhaps feel the freedom to a certain extent, but very few realize that one of the priorities that you have during the Seder is actually to feel the agony that we were in order to truly feel the salvation. So that's why the certain Chachamim, like the Rambam and others, that paskin that it's not just to feel and see yourself as someone that went through this agony and now has the salvation, but actually to appear as if you've just gone through this agony and now you're going through a salvation. And this is the reason why there are customs that Rabbi Ephraim and his family does and other tzaddikim do, which they actually do like a play. They do like a play, and the kids, when they ask, who are you? And he says, I am, I'm going to, where are you going? I'm going to Yerushalayim. Oh, where did you come from? I came from Egypt. What did you do in Egypt? And he starts telling the story of, we were in Egypt, we were enslaved, they tortured us, they enslaved us, they did this to us, and then, after all of this torture, the salvation came. But this whole play, sometimes with a costume, sometimes without, but the point is to make the whole thing as alive as possible, as real as possible, to truly feel the transition and not just focus on when do we eat. Okay? The when do we eat is not as important as the story itself of why are we here in the first place. As a rabbi, I must emphasize that this mitzvah is mandatory for every Jew, as it ensures all members of Am Yisrael can properly celebrate the holiday with dignity and joy. The importance of Kimcha de Pisha stems from the fundamental halacha that one must ensure everyone can experience true simcha, happiness during the holiday.